The CEO's hand trembled as he held the boarding pass for his returning flight, knowing that the woman who had changed everything in 2 weeks was about to walk out of his life forever. Harrison Abbott stood at the gate in the small Mediterranean airport, his designer luggage at his feet, watching Tessa Parker laugh with the elderly couple who ran the beachside cafe where they had met 13 days ago. She did not know he was there yet. She did not know he had changed his flight to match hers. She definitely did not know that the casual businessman she had been spending her holiday with was actually the CEO of Abbott Global Holdings, one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in North America. He had not meant to lie. When she asked what he did for work that first afternoon, after she had accidentally knocked his book into the sand while chasing a runaway beach ball, he had simply said he worked in pharmaceuticals. Technical truth. He managed them, oversaw them, built an empire around them. But something about her genuine smile, and the way she apologized 3 times for the sandy pages, made him want to be just Harrison for once. Not the 32-year-old CEO who had built his late father's struggling company into a billion-dollar enterprise. Not the man whose face appeared in Forbes and Business Weekly. Just a guy on vacation. Tessa finished her goodbyes and turned toward the gate, her sundress swaying around her knees, her dark hair pulled into a messy bun that somehow looked effortlessly beautiful. When she spotted him, her face lit up in a way that made his chest tight. "I thought you were flying out yesterday," she said, reaching him with that easy warmth that had drawn him in from the beginning. "Changed my plans," Harrison said, which was mostly true. He had canceled 4 board meetings, pushed back a merger discussion, and ignored 17 increasingly frantic emails from his executive assistant. "Figured I could use another day. Ended up on your flight, apparently." Her smile widened. "That is a happy coincidence. At least I will have someone to talk to during the layover in London." Harrison picked up his bag, falling into step beside her as they moved through security. The truth was he had meticulously researched her return flight after she mentioned it over dinner 3 nights ago. He had memorized her travel itinerary better than his own quarterly reports, and he had no idea what he was going to do when they landed in Seattle and reality came crashing back. The 2 weeks in Crete had been the first real break he had taken in 5 years. His best friend and CFO, Marcus, had practically forced him onto the plane, threatening to lock him out of the office if he did not take the vacation time he had accumulated. Harrison had gone reluctantly, expecting to spend the time working remotely from a hotel room with a view. Then Tessa had crashed into his carefully planned solitude with her infectious laugh and her complete inability to follow a map. She was a kindergarten teacher from Seattle, spending her summer break exploring Greece on a budget that made his typical hotel suite cost look obscene. She stayed in hostels and ate street food, and found joy in everything from stray cats to local markets. She had made him remember what it felt like to be present in a moment, instead of 3 steps ahead planning the next quarter's strategy. They had spent nearly every day together after that first meeting. She showed him the Greece that existed beyond 5-star resorts. He taught her to sail on a rented boat that she initially refused to board because it looked too expensive. They argued about books and philosophy, and whether pineapple belonged on pizza. She never once asked about his net worth or his connections. She seemed to genuinely enjoy his company for reasons that had nothing to do with what he could provide. Now, sitting beside her on the plane as it lifted into the cloudless sky, Harrison felt the weight of his deception growing heavier. When would he tell her? "How did you casually mention that you were worth over $1 billion, and your company employed 15,000 people across 4 continents? Penny for your thoughts," Tessa said, nudging his arm gently. You have been quiet since we boarded. Just thinking about going back to real life, Harrison admitted. These 2 weeks felt like existing in a bubble. I know what you mean. She leaned her head back against the seat, her expression turning wistful. Tomorrow I have to start preparing my classroom for the new school year. Laminating name tags and organizing crayons. Do you think the kids will believe me if I tell them I sailed around Greek islands? Show them pictures. You took about 1,000 of that sunset. She laughed, the sound making several passengers glance their way. Those were important documentary evidence. That sunset was a religious experience. Harrison loved how she found wonder in simple things. His world was mergers and acquisitions, profit margins and stakeholder meetings. Hers was construction paper and picture books, small humans learning to write their names. The contrast should have created an impossible divide, but instead it felt like she was showing him a part of life he had forgotten existed. "Can I ask you something?" Tessa said as the flight attendant brought drinks. "Anything." "Why did you seem so surprised when I said I paid for my own dinner that first night?" Harrison paused, the water bottle halfway to his lips. He had been surprised because in his normal life, people either expected him to pay for everything or were trying to impress him with their own wealth. The idea that someone would casually split a €15 check had been genuinely shocking. "I guess I am used to different expectations around dating," he said carefully. "Is that what we were doing? Dating?" Her tone was light, but her eyes were searching his face. "What would you call it?" "I've been calling it a holiday romance in my head," Tessa admitted, and something sharp twisted in Harrison's chest. The kind of thing that feels magical because it exists outside normal life. Like Cinderella at the ball, but with better food and more swimming. And like Cinderella, it ends at midnight. She looked away, focusing on the clouds outside the window. We live in the same city, which is crazy coincidental, but we also live completely different lives. You stayed at the Grand Mediterranean Resort. I stayed at a hostel with communal showers. You can take 2 weeks off work without blinking. I had to save for 8 months to afford this trip. I had a wonderful time with you, Harrison, the best time, but I am also realistic about what happens when the vacation ends. Harrison felt like she had punched him in the gut. She was trying to let him down easy, assuming that he would want to walk away once they were back in Seattle. She had no idea that he was already planning how to rearrange his entire life to make room for her. "What if I do not want it to end?" The words came out rougher than he intended. Tessa turned back to him, surprise flickering across her features. "You live in the resort area, probably work downtown in one of those fancy offices. I live in a 1-bedroom apartment in Greenwood with 2 roommates and take the bus to work. Our paths are not exactly going to cross naturally. So we make them cross." Harrison shifted in his seat to face her fully. "Tessa, I have not enjoyed spending time with someone this much in years, maybe ever. I know we only knew each other for 2 weeks, but that does not make it less real." Her eyes were shining now, bright with something that looked like hope mixed with fear. "You really want to try, like actually dating back home?" "Yes, absolutely yes." "Okay," the word came out breathless. "Okay, but I need to warn you my life is pretty boring. Grading papers and grocery shopping and arguing with my roommate about whose turn it is to clean the bathroom. If you are expecting glamorous excitement, you should know that last Friday night I ate cereal for dinner and fell asleep watching a documentary about penguins." Harrison caught her hand, threading their fingers together. "That sounds perfect." She squeezed back, and for the rest of the flight they talked about everything and nothing, making plans for restaurants to try and hikes to take. Harrison felt the secret burning in his throat multiple times, but he could never find the right moment. How did you interrupt a conversation about her favorite coffee shop to mention you could buy the entire chain without checking your bank balance? The layover in London stretched long and exhausting. They found a quiet corner, and she fell asleep with her head on his shoulder while he worked through emails on his phone, firing off responses to his executive team who were probably wondering if he had died in Greece. Marcus sent a message asking if he was ever coming back or if they should start interviewing for a new CEO. Harrison replied with a photo of himself giving the middle finger, which probably was not his most professional moment. By the time they boarded the final flight to Seattle, Tessa was fading fast. She barely made it through takeoff before falling asleep again, this time with her head tilted awkwardly against the window. Harrison gently repositioned her, so she was leaning against him instead, and spent the 9-hour flight watching her sleep and trying to figure out how he was going to tell her the truth. They landed in Seattle on a gray Tuesday afternoon, the overcast sky a stark contrast to the Mediterranean sun they had left behind. Harrison helped Tessa grab her well-worn backpack from the overhead compartment, his own designer luggage suddenly feeling ostentatious. "My roommate is picking me up," Tessa said as they walked through the terminal. "Can I give you a ride somewhere?" "I have a car service," Harrison said, which was true. His driver had already texted to confirm he was waiting. "But I want to see you again soon. How about dinner tomorrow night?" "I would love that." She pulled out her phone, which had a cracked screen and a case covered in stickers from various national parks. They exchanged numbers, and Harrison made a mental note to not text her from his work phone, which had his full name and title in the signature. "Text me when you get home safe," Tessa said, rising on her toes to kiss his cheek. "Thank you for the best vacation of my life, Harrison." "Thank you for making it worth taking," he replied, and watched her disappear into the crowd of arriving passengers. His driver, Robert, found him 3 minutes later and nearly dropped his keys when he saw Harrison's casual clothes and sun-weathered face. "Mr. Abbott, sir. Welcome back. We were starting to worry when you extended your trip." "I needed the break, Robert." Harrison climbed into the back of the black Mercedes, the leather seats and climate control feeling alien after 2 weeks of bus rides and beach towels. "Take me home, please. And Robert, just Harrison today. I am not ready to be Mr. Abbott yet." His penthouse apartment overlooking Elliott Bay felt cavernous and cold after the cozy chaos of Tessa's presence. Harrison stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the city skyline and the gray water beyond, and realized he had no idea how to exist in both worlds simultaneously. The next morning brought reality crashing back with force. His assistant, Patricia, appeared at his home office door at 7 in the morning sharp, tablet in hand and an expression that meant business. "You look terrible," she said by way of greeting. "Jet lag. Avoidance of responsibility." She set down a coffee that probably cost more than Tessa's entire breakfast budget. "The board is demanding a meeting about the Zenith merger. Marcus has been fielding calls from stakeholders. And there are about 200 emails that actually require your attention, not just the dismissive one-sentence replies you have been sending." Harrison sighed, booting up his computer. "Give me until noon to sort through the mess. Schedule the board meeting for Friday. And Patricia, I need you to do something for me. That tone of voice makes me nervous. I need you to be discreet about my personal life. If anyone asks where I was or who I was with, you do not know anything." Patricia's perfectly shaped eyebrow rose. "You met someone, maybe." "Harrison, you do not do maybe. You do calculated decisions with projected outcomes." She studied his face and something softened in her expression. "She does not know who you are, does she? She knows who I am. She does not know what I am. That seems like a problem that will escalate quickly." "I know. I just need a few more days to figure out how to tell her without everything changing." Patricia sighed the sigh of someone who had worked for him for 7 years and knew exactly how stubborn he could be. "Fine. But when this explodes in your face, remember that I warned you." Harrison spent the day buried in work, trying to remember how to think in quarterly projections and market analyses. But his mind kept drifting to Tessa, wondering what she was doing, if she was thinking about him too. He texted her around 2, just a simple message asking how the jet lag was treating her. She replied with a photo of herself surrounded by cardboard boxes of school supplies, her hair in a messy ponytail, making an exaggerated, exhausted face. He saved the photo immediately. They met for dinner that night at a small Italian restaurant in Ballard that Tessa had suggested. Harrison arrived early, parking his Aston Martin 3 blocks away and walking to avoid questions about the expensive car. She was already there, wearing jeans and a soft green sweater, looking beautiful and real in a way that made his chest hurt. "I missed you," she said, greeting him with a hug that felt like coming home. "Is that crazy, to miss someone after less than 24 hours?" "Not crazy," Harrison assured her, breathing in the familiar scent of her shampoo. "I missed you too." Dinner was easy and comfortable, falling back into the rhythm they had found in Greece. She told him about her classroom prep and the school gossip she had missed. He told her carefully edited stories about work stress and catching up on projects. Every time he opened his mouth to tell her the truth, something stopped him. Fear that she would look at him differently. Fear that the easy warmth between them would freeze into something complicated. They started seeing each other regularly. 3 or 4 times a week, Harrison would shed his CEO persona and become just Harrison, the guy who ate Thai food on Tessa's worn couch and helped her laminate name tags for her students. Her roommates, 2 other teachers named Claire and Nicole, adopted him immediately, apparently thrilled that Tessa had finally found a decent guy who actually called when he said he would. The double life was exhausting. During the day, Harrison ran board meetings and negotiated deals worth hundreds of millions. He wore custom suits and made decisions that affected thousands of employees. Then he would change into jeans and a plain shirt, swap his Aston Martin for a ride share, and show up at Tessa's apartment to watch cooking shows and steal bites of whatever she was making for dinner. 3 weeks into their Seattle relationship, Tessa invited him to her school's open house night. "I know it is not exciting," she said, "but I want you to see what I do. Meet my kids metaphorically, since they will not be there. But you can see my classroom and understand why I spend my weekends making bulletin boards about the life cycle of butterflies." Harrison agreed immediately, even though it meant rescheduling a dinner with potential investors from Singapore. Patricia nearly had a stroke when he told her, "You are canceling a $12 million deal to look at a kindergarten classroom. Marcus can handle the dinner. He is charming enough." "Harrison, this is getting out of control. When are you going to tell her?" "Soon," he promised and meant it. The secret was becoming unbearable, especially as he fell harder for Tessa with every passing day. She was brilliant and kind, and made him laugh in ways he had forgotten he could. She also lived on a teacher's salary and had expressed, more than once, her strong opinions about wealth inequality and corporate greed. The irony was not lost on him. The open house was held on a Thursday evening. Harrison showed up with flowers, which made Tessa roll her eyes and kiss him in front of the school entrance. "You cannot bring me flowers at work. That is like rule number 1 of teacher dating." "I do not know any teacher dating rules. You will have to educate me." Her classroom was exactly what he expected. Colorful and chaotic, and covered in student artwork and educational posters. She showed him the reading corner with its bean bags and books, the science station with its magnifying glasses and rocks, the dramatic play area that was currently set up as a veterinary clinic. "This is where the magic happens," Tessa said, spinning in a circle with her arms out. 22 5-year-olds learning that the world is bigger than they knew, and they are capable of more than they realized. Harrison felt something crack open in his chest. He had built a company worth billions, but watching Tessa talk about teaching a child to read their first word made him wonder what really mattered. Other teachers drifted in and out, introducing themselves and teasing Tessa about her vacation boyfriend who actually materialized. Harrison shook hands and made small talk, carefully avoiding any detailed questions about his work. One teacher, an older woman named Margaret, studied him with sharp eyes and a knowing smile that made him nervous. After the open house, they walked to a nearby park and sat on a bench overlooking a playground. The Seattle summer evening was perfect, warm and clear, and Tessa leaned into his side contentedly. "Thank you for coming tonight," she said. "I know kindergarten classrooms are not exactly thrilling." "I loved it. I loved seeing your world. You still have not shown me yours," Tessa pointed out. "Where do you work exactly? You have been vague about the details." Harrison's heart rate picked up. "It's boring pharmaceutical stuff, regulations and research." "But where? Which company?" "Tessa." He turned to face her, taking her hands in his. "There is something I need to tell you about my job." His phone rang, the special ringtone that meant an emergency at the company. Harrison wanted to ignore it, but years of responsibility overrode his desire to finally come clean. "I am sorry, I have to take this." He stepped away, answering to hear Marcus's tense voice. "We have a problem. The FDA is asking questions about the new drug trial. We need you in the office now for an emergency meeting with legal." "I am in the middle of something." "Harrison, this could tank the company if we do not handle it correctly. I need you here." Harrison closed his eyes, torn between two worlds. "Give me an hour." He hung up and returned to Tessa, who was watching him with a confused expression. "Everything okay? Work emergency." "I have to go deal with something." "At 8 at night. It is complicated." He kissed her forehead, already mentally shifting into CEO mode. "I will call you tomorrow. I promise we will finish that conversation." He left her sitting on the bench looking puzzled and hurt and hated himself for it. Robert picked him up 2 blocks away, and Harrison changed into the spare suit he kept in the car, transforming back into Harrison Abbott, CEO, by the time they reached the downtown office tower that housed Abbott Global Holdings. The crisis took all night and most of the next day to resolve. By the time Harrison emerged from the conference room, exhausted and running on coffee, it was Friday evening. He had sent Tessa a few apologetic texts, but nothing that really explained his absence. She had responded politely but coolly, and he knew he had damaged something fragile between them. He was about to call her when Patricia appeared with a tablet and an expression that meant more problems. Business Weekly published their feature on you, the one with the photo shoot from May. It is getting a lot of attention online. Harrison's stomach dropped. "Let me see." The article was titled, "The Billionaire Who Never Sleeps: Inside Harrison Abbott's Pharmaceutical Empire." It featured multiple photos of him in his office, looking every inch the powerful CEO he was. The article detailed his net worth, his rise in the industry, his reputation for ruthless business decisions and brilliant strategy. "It is trending on social media," Patricia said quietly, "which means there is a good chance your teacher sees it." "I was going to tell her." "I tried to tell her last night before the emergency." "Harrison, I say this with deep respect and affection. You are an idiot." He could not even argue. He tried calling Tessa, but it went to voicemail. He texted, No response. Finally, in desperation, he got in his car and drove to her apartment, not caring that he was still in his suit, not caring that he probably looked like exactly what he was. A billionaire trying to explain away a lie. Claire answered the door, her friendly expression cooling when she saw him. "She does not want to talk to you. Please, I need to explain." "Explain what?" "That you are Harrison Abbott, billionaire CEO, and you have been lying to her for over a month." She figured it out, genius. One of the other teachers saw the article and sent it to her. Harrison felt sick. "Is she here? Can I just talk to her for 5 minutes?" "She is not here. She went to stay with her parents for the weekend because she did not want to risk running into you." Claire crossed her arms. "Look, I do not know what your game was, pretending to be a normal guy. But Tessa does not deserve to be someone's experiment in slumming it. She has a good heart and you took advantage of that." "That is not what happened. I fell in love with her." The words came out raw and honest. "I was not pretending. I was just being myself without all the noise that usually comes with my life. I should have told her sooner, I know that. But everything between us was real." Claire's expression softened slightly. "Then you better find a way to make her believe that. Because right now, she thinks the whole thing was fake." Harrison spent the weekend trying to reach Tessa and being sent to voicemail every time. By Monday, he was desperate enough to show up at her school, which Patricia strongly advised against. "You cannot ambush her at work. That is like restraining order territory." "I am not ambushing. I am going to wait outside and ask for 5 minutes of her time." "You are a billionaire CEO waiting outside an elementary school. That is not a good look for anyone involved." But Harrison went anyway, parking down the street and waiting until the teachers started arriving. He spotted Tessa's bus pulling up and intercepted her before she reached the entrance. "Please do not walk away," he said quickly. "I know I messed up. I know I should have told you. But please let me explain." Tessa looked exhausted, like she had not slept well. "What is there to explain, Harrison? Or should I call you Mr. Abbott? Is that more appropriate when addressing a billionaire?" "My name is Harrison." That part was never a lie, but everything else was. "You let me think you were just a normal guy. You watched me worry about splitting dinner checks and never said anything. I told you about my student loan debt, and you just nodded sympathetically like you understood." Her voice was shaking now. "Do you know how humiliating it is to realize that you were probably laughing at me the whole time?" "I was never laughing at you. Tessa, being with you was the first time in years I got to be myself instead of my job. You saw me for who I am, not what I am worth." "But I did not see you at all, did I? I saw the version you wanted me to see, the edit, not the truth." She swiped at her eyes angrily. "I have to go. My kids will be arriving soon." "Tessa, please have dinner with me, one meal. Let me explain everything properly." "I cannot do this right now." She moved past him toward the school entrance, then paused and turned back. "And you should not be here. This is my workplace, my safe space. Do not show up here again." Harrison watched her disappear into the building and felt like he had been shattered from the inside out. He had negotiated billion-dollar deals, stared down hostile takeovers, built an empire from struggling remains. But losing Tessa felt like losing something infinitely more valuable than any of it. He threw himself into work for the next week, trying to bury the pain in mergers and acquisitions. But everything felt hollow. Marcus finally cornered him in his office on Friday afternoon. "You look like death. When is the last time you slept?" "I sleep for more than 3 hours at a time." Marcus dropped into the chair across from Harrison's desk. "This is about the teacher, is it not?" "She will not talk to me. She thinks I was playing some kind of game." "Were you?" "What? No, Marcus, I love her. I want to build a life with her. I just completely destroyed any chance of that by being an idiot." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. You know what your problem is. You are used to fixing things with strategy and money. But relationships do not work that way. You cannot buy trust back. You have to earn it. How do I earn it when she will not even speak to me? You show her who you really are, not the CEO, not the guy pretending to be normal. All of it. The complicated, messy reality. And then you let her decide if that is something she wants. Harrison thought about that conversation for days. How did he show Tessa the whole truth? He had been so busy hiding the CEO part that she had never seen how the two pieces fit together. She did not know that he donated millions to education programs every year. She did not know that he had been anonymously funding the medical care for one of his employees' children with leukemia. She did not know that he had built his company on the foundation of making medicine accessible and affordable, driven by memories of watching his father die because they could not afford better treatment. An idea started forming, risky and possibly disastrous, but potentially his only shot at getting through to her. He had Patricia set up a meeting with the principal of Tessa's school. The principal, a warm woman named Dr. Chen, was understandably confused when her assistant told her Harrison Abbott wanted to discuss a donation. "Your company does pharmaceutical research," Dr. Chen said when they met in her office. "Why would you be interested in an elementary school?" "Because someone I care about deeply works here, and she helped me remember why education matters. I want to establish a grant program for classroom supplies and field trips. No strings attached. Whatever the teachers need to do their jobs better." Dr. Chen's eyes widened. "That is incredibly generous. What kind of budget are we discussing?" Harrison named a figure that made her sit down abruptly. "That would change everything for our students. Mr. Abbott, why do I feel like there is more to this story? There is. And I need your help with something, if you are willing to hear me out." The following week, Tessa received a note in her school mailbox asking her to attend a special assembly in the gymnasium. She almost did not go, tired from another sleepless night thinking about Harrison and hating that she missed him despite everything. But Claire convinced her that skipping would just create more questions. The gym was filled with students and teachers when she arrived. Dr. Chen stood at the front with a microphone, smiling broadly. "Thank you all for gathering on such short notice. We have some exciting news to share. Abbott Global Holdings has established a grant program for our school. Every teacher will receive funding for classroom supplies, and every grade will get to take an additional field trip this year." The teachers burst into applause and excited chatter. Tessa felt her stomach drop. Abbott Global Holdings, Harrison's company. She looked around wildly and spotted him standing near the back of the gym, wearing a suit and looking every inch the billionaire CEO he was. Their eyes met across the crowded room, and Tessa felt her heart lurch painfully. What was he doing? Was this some kind of manipulation? An attempt to buy his way back into her good graces. Dr. Chen continued. "Mr. Abbott is here today and has agreed to answer some questions about the program. But first, he asked if he could say a few words." "Mr. Abbott." Harrison took the microphone, and Tessa saw his hand shake slightly. "Good. He should be nervous. Thank you, Dr. Chen. I promise to be brief because I know you all have classrooms to get back to. I started this grant program because someone made me remember why education is the most important investment we can make. She made me see that the real heroes are not people like me in corner offices. The real heroes are the people who show up every day to teach kids that the world is full of possibilities." He was looking directly at Tessa now, and she felt pinned in place by the intensity of his gaze. "I made a lot of mistakes recently. I hid parts of myself because I was scared of being seen only as my job instead of as a person. But in doing that, I hurt someone who deserved complete honesty from the beginning. Someone who saw the best in me even when I was not showing her the whole picture. His voice cracked slightly. Tessa, I know you are angry with me. You have every right to be, but I need you to know that every moment we spent together was real. The person I was with you is who I am, just without the complicated context. I am still the guy who cannot read a map. I still think pineapple on pizza is a crime. I still fall asleep during documentaries about penguins. I just also happen to run a company and have more money than any one person reasonably needs. The gym had gone completely silent. Tessa was aware of every eye turning to look at her, but she could not look away from Harrison. I love you, he said simply. I fell in love with you on a beach in Crete, and I have been falling harder every day since. If you give me another chance, I promise complete honesty about everything. The good, the bad, and the stupidly complicated. But if you cannot forgive me for lying, I understand. Just please know that what we had was not a game. It was the most real thing in my life. He handed the microphone back to Dr. Chen and walked out of the gym before anyone could react. Tessa stood frozen for a moment, then ran after him, aware that she was probably creating legendary school gossip but not caring even a little bit. She caught him in the parking lot, next to a sleek, expensive car that was so obviously his. That was not fair, she said breathlessly. Harrison turned, hope and fear warring on his face. I know. I should not have made a scene at your workplace, but you would not answer my calls and I was running out of options and I just needed you to hear me say it out loud. I love you, Tessa. I know I have a lot of explaining to do and trust to rebuild, but I am all in if you will let me be. Tessa felt tears streaming down her face. She was furious and heartbroken, and somehow still completely in love with this infuriating man. You should have told me in Greece. When it first started getting serious. I know. I was selfish and scared. I have had so many people in my life who only wanted me for what I could give them. You were the first person in years who just wanted me. I did not want to lose that. So instead you made sure I could not trust you. Harrison flinched like she had hit him. Yes, I did. And I am sorrier than I know how to express. Tessa, I cannot undo it. All I can do is promise to never hide anything from you again. Ask me anything about my life or my work or my bank account. I will give you complete transparency from this moment forward. Tessa wiped her eyes, trying to think through the emotional chaos. Why do you love me, really? You could date anyone. Models, celebrities, other billionaires. Why a kindergarten teacher from Greenwood? Because you make me laugh. Because you care about things that matter. Because you look at the world with wonder and you made me remember how to do that too. Because when I am with you, I am not performing or strategizing or 3 steps ahead. I am just present. You gave me that gift and I threw it away by lying. But if you let me, I will spend however long it takes earning it back. She studied his face, seeing the exhaustion and the desperate hope. I love you too, she finally said, and watched his expression crumble with relief. But I am also really angry with you. You do not get to just make a grand gesture and have everything be fixed. I know, tell me what you need, I will do anything. I need time, and I need honesty about everything. Not just the big stuff. I need to understand your whole life, not just the sanitized vacation version. Done. Absolutely done. Harrison took a hesitant step toward her. Can I hug you? I have missed you so much it physically hurts. Tessa nodded and let herself fold into his arms, breathing in his familiar scent and feeling the knot in her chest finally start to loosen. They stood like that in the parking lot for a long moment, just holding each other. Your fancy car is causing a scene, Tessa finally said against his shoulder. Half the school is probably watching from the windows. Let them watch. I do not care who knows I am crazy about you. She pulled back to look at him. I have to finish the school day, but maybe dinner tonight, and you can start showing me the real you, billionaire complications and all. I will pick you up at 7. No, wait. Do you want me to pick you up? Or would you rather meet somewhere? I am not sure about the protocol for dating when you are mad at me but willing to try. Despite everything, Tessa laughed. You can pick me up. But Harrison, if you ever lie to me again about anything, I am done. I mean it. Complete honesty or this does not work. Complete honesty, I promise. Rebuilding trust was not easy. Over the next few weeks, Harrison opened up his entire life to Tessa's scrutiny. He showed her his penthouse, which made her laugh at how aggressively modern and expensive everything was. He introduced her to Marcus and Patricia, who grilled her extensively before deciding she was acceptable. He took her to a board meeting, which she found simultaneously boring and fascinating. In return, Tessa showed him more of her world. He met her parents, who lived in Tacoma and were deeply suspicious of his intentions, until he spent an entire Saturday helping her father rebuild a deck. He volunteered in her classroom, reading picture books to kindergartners who were far more interested in his expensive watch than his reading skills. He learned the names of her teacher friends and showed up to a staff happy hour where he was definitely the overdressed outsider, but tried anyway. They argued sometimes, usually about money. Tessa was fiercely independent and hated any gesture that felt like charity. Harrison was used to solving problems by throwing resources at them. They found a compromise slowly and painfully, learning each other's boundaries and triggers. 2 months after the gym declaration, they were having dinner at Harrison's place when Tessa brought up something that had been bothering her. I have been thinking about moving in together, she said carefully. Harrison looked up from his plate, trying not to look too eager. I have been thinking about that too. But not here. Your apartment is beautiful, but it is not us. It is you, very successfully you, but I would feel like a visitor. So we find a place that is ours, whatever you want. I do not want you to buy something crazy expensive just because you can. I want something that feels like a home, with normal counters and a reasonable number of bathrooms. Harrison set down his fork. Tessa, I need you to understand something. I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. I give millions to charity every year. I am not asking you to be comfortable with excess, but I also need you to let me provide for the people I love without feeling guilty about it. I know. I am working on it, but you need to understand that growing up, we did not have a lot. My parents worked hard to give us what we needed. I put myself through school on scholarships and loans. The idea of just spending money without thinking about it feels wrong in my bones. What if we found a middle ground, a place that is comfortable but not ridiculous? We furnish it together, make it actually ours instead of mine or yours. They spent the next month house hunting, which turned into an ongoing negotiation about values and comfort and what home meant. They finally found a craftsman house in Fremont that had character and charm without being ostentatious. It had a yard where they could eventually have a dog, and a big kitchen that Tessa immediately claimed for her baking experiments. The first night in their new house, they sat on the floor eating pizza because their furniture had not arrived yet, and Harrison felt more content than he had in his entire life. I have something to tell you, Tessa said, picking pepperoni off her slice. Complete honesty, Harrison reminded her with a smile. I have been offered a position as the school's literacy coordinator. It would mean fewer classroom hours and more curriculum development. Better pay, though still laughably small by your standards. I would start next school year. That is amazing. You would be brilliant at that. It also means I would have more flexibility, time to maybe do other things. She was looking at him with an expression he could not quite read. What other things? Marriage things? Family things? Tessa's cheeks were pink now. "I am not proposing. That is definitely your job, but I am saying that if you were thinking about proposing, I would be open to discussing it." Harrison set down his pizza, his heart hammering. "I have the ring already. I bought it 3 weeks ago. It is hidden in my office at work because I did not want you to accidentally find it." "You bought a ring?" Tessa's voice went high and delighted. "I have been trying to figure out the right way to ask. I wanted it to be perfect and meaningful and not feel like I was rushing you." "Harrison, we are eating pizza on the floor of our new house. This is pretty perfect." He laughed and pulled her into his lap, kissing her thoroughly. "I do not have the ring with me. I do not need the ring right now. I just need you to ask." Harrison pulled back to look at her, this incredible woman who had turned his carefully controlled life into something messy and real and infinitely better. "Tessa Parker, will you marry me? Will you let me love you for the rest of my life? Will you keep calling me out when I am being ridiculous and making me remember what actually matters?" "Yes, to all of it. Yes." She was crying and laughing at the same time. "But I get to keep teaching, and we are having a reasonable wedding, not some billionaire circus. Whatever you want. You can plan the whole thing. I will just show up and cry when you walk down the aisle." They got married 6 months later in a ceremony that was elegant but intimate, just family and close friends at a vineyard outside Seattle. Tessa wore a simple dress that made Harrison forget how to breathe. He cried as promised, and Marcus gave a speech that was equal parts touching and embarrassing. For their honeymoon, they went back to Crete, staying at the same small beach where they had met. They visited the elderly couple's cafe and showed them wedding photos. They sailed and swam and stayed up late talking about their future. 2 years later, when Tessa told Harrison she was pregnant, he dropped an entire cup of coffee on his office floor and had to call an emergency board meeting recess because he could not stop grinning. Their daughter was born on a rainy October morning, with dark hair like her mother and her father's stubborn determination. They named her Elena, after Tessa's grandmother, and Harrison discovered that he had not known what love meant until he held his daughter for the first time. Watching Tessa with Elena, seeing her patience and wonder and joy, Harrison often thought about that afternoon in Crete when a runaway beach ball had knocked his book into the sand. He had been so convinced he needed to hide parts of himself to be loved. But Tessa had taught him that real love was not about being perfect or impressive. It was about being honest and present and willing to be vulnerable. He still ran Abbott Global Holdings, still made difficult decisions and negotiated complex deals. But now he came home to a house full of laughter and scattered toys, to a wife who kept him grounded and a daughter who thought he hung the moon. His life was more complicated and chaotic than it had ever been, and he would not change a single thing. On their 4th anniversary, Tessa surprised him with a framed photo from their first day in Crete. He barely remembered her taking it, a candid shot of him laughing at something she said, the Mediterranean sparkling behind him. "You look free in this photo," Tessa said, curling into his side on their couch while Elena slept upstairs. "That is when I started falling for you, when I realized you smiled with your whole face when you were happy." "You gave me that," Harrison said, kissing the top of her head. "You gave me permission to be myself. We gave it to each other. And really, that was the whole story. Two people who found each other by accident and built something intentional together. A holiday romance that followed her home and became his entire life, better and truer than anything he could have planned." Harrison Abbott, the CEO who thought he had everything figured out, discovered that the best things in life were the ones you could not strategize or control. They were the ones you simply had to show up for, completely and honestly, and trust that love would do the rest.